And joining us now are Florida Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz and New York Republican Congressman Mike Lawler. Both serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman Lawler, how do you think the U.S. should respond? Steve Hadley said there are ways to get at Iran without going into Iranian territory. Or do you want something more than that?
Well, look, Andrea, since October 7th, there have been more than 150 attacks on U.S. military bases and personnel. Obviously, 3 U.S. military personnel dying this past weekend. The United States needs to show strength, and the administration needs to escalate and sustain the response. The only thing the Iranians understand is strength. And when you look at the fact that they have backed and funded Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other terrorist organizations as their proxies throughout the region, they have escalated the situation in the Middle East. It is incumbent on the administration to respond both against these terrorist proxies as well as against Iran. And that is why Congressman Moskowitz and I introduced the SHIP Act last year. It passed the House after the October 7th attacks, and it has been stalled in the Senate. It is time to act and go after the funding source for these terrorist attacks, Iranian petroleum. That is something that is bipartisan, and it requires action by the Senate, and the White House needs to embrace this. We have to cut the funding off at its head.
Congressman Moskowitz, the president has said he doesn't want to widen the war. It's clear they're going to take action, and the action will be against Iran or Iranian assets. What about the sanctions on oil? Why do you think the Senate is slow-walking this, if you do?
Yeah, no, thanks, Andrea. Look, I'm happy to be here with Congressman Lawler. I mean, this was something that passed on a bipartisan basis in the House. I can't explain why the Senate does certain things or doesn't do certain things sometimes. You know, this passed with overwhelming majorities, 2/3 in the House. This is something the Senate should take up and send to the president's desk, especially in light of this latest attack. Look, President Biden has done a good job making sure that the war that Israel is doing against Hamas has not widened. But the but is that we must respond, and President Biden must deliver a hammer blow to these proxies in Yemen, Iraq, and other areas. It must be clear that the United States is firm, that we send a message, but also understand that this is a trap that China and Russia are also setting. They would love for us to get involved in a war in the Middle East, which would take our eye off of Ukraine, which would allow China to move against Taiwan. So there are all these pieces that we have to pay attention to. But there's a lot more we can do, both on sanctions as well as a military response. We should also be denying Iranian leadership any entrance into the United States to attend any UN meetings. So there's lots of things we can do diplomatically, we can do cyber-wise, as well as militarily. But, if I were the president, every boat and every plane that these proxies have, I would destroy. I would destroy their capabilities. Any airport that they launch these drones from, I would destroy. And send a hammer blow to the proxies so that Iran finally understands the message.
Well, thank you very much, Congressman Mike Lawler and Jared Moskowitz. And we've just also learned off Air Force